Peaceful Money Conversations, Mastering Finances Without Conflict. Chapter 1. Why Talking About Money Feels Heavy. It's an almost universal experience. The moment you realize a conversation needs to happen, a conversation about money, a subtle, heavy weight settles over the room. Maybe you're sitting across from a partner, needing to discuss the month's budget. Perhaps you're talking to a parent about supporting their retirement. Or maybe it's just an awkward exchange with a close friend about splitting the cost of a trip. Regardless of the setting or the relationship, the feeling is the same. A sudden, internal shift into caution, defensiveness, or outright avoidance. Why does this happen? Why, in a society built on commerce and financial exchange, is the simple act of discussing money so often tied to tension, judgment, and fear? The core reason is that money is rarely just about numbers. It's a proxy for something far deeper. It's a symbol. It's a scoreboard. It's a measure of success, security, freedom, and even love. When we talk about a bank balance, we aren't just talking about dollars and cents. We are talking about value. Our value, the other person's value, and the perceived value of our relationship. That right there is where the heaviness begins. When you bring up finances, you are not just presenting a fact. You are potentially exposing a vulnerability. You are opening the door to unspoken fears that have been carefully sealed away. Let's name those fears, because until we bring them out into the light, they hold all the power. These are the hidden weights that make honesty feel so much harder than silence. The first and perhaps most common fear is the fear of judgment. We all have a quiet, private story about our financial past. Maybe you took on too much debt in college. Maybe you made a few impulsive purchases you now regret. Maybe you simply earn less than you feel you should by this point in your life. When you prepare to discuss money, especially with someone whose opinion matters deeply to you, these old mistakes and insecurities rush back to the surface. You worry that your choices will be scrutinized. You fear being labeled irresponsible, extravagant, naive, or stingy. This fear makes us edit our truth. It makes us hedge our bets. It makes us present a cleaner, neater version of our financial reality than the one we actually live in. And when you're not sharing the whole truth, harmony is impossible. The second powerful weight is the fear of tension or conflict. You know what this feels like. You remember the last time a money conversation went sideways. The voices got louder. The tone got sharp. Suddenly, the discussion about a credit card bill morphed into a sweeping critique of character. Most of us are hardwired to prefer peace over friction. We crave equilibrium in our interactions. So, if we associate financial conversations with emotional turmoil, with raised voices or cold silence, our natural instinct is to back away. We think if I just don't bring it up, everything will stay calm. This isn't a sign of weakness. It's a desire for peace. But it's a desire that ultimately sacrifices clarity for temporary quiet. The third weight, particularly potent in intimate relationships, is the fear of rejection or abandonment. This is a deep-seated, often unconscious fear. For many people, money represents security. It means the bills get paid, the roof stays over their heads, and their future feels stable. When their financial reality or the financial choices of a partner are threatened, it doesn't just feel like a threat to the budget. It feels like a threat to the entire foundation of their life. If you bring up a serious financial shortfall, a partner might feel that you are not a reliable source of security. If you refuse to lend money to a friend, you might fear that they will reject the friendship, viewing your refusal as a lack of loyalty or care. The stakes are raised far beyond the dollar amount. The silent equation is, if I don't handle money the way they want, or if I reveal how little I have, will I still be worthy of their love and presence? We must acknowledge this. The fear of losing connection is one of the biggest reasons we avoid the topic of money. The fourth and often most insidious weight is the fear of realizing a painful truth. Sometimes, the difficulty isn't the other person. It's what the conversation might reveal about your own life or relationship. Perhaps you suspect your spending habits are not sustainable. Perhaps you sense your partner has different long-term priorities than you do. Perhaps you already know, deep down, that you need to make a massive change. Sell the house, change careers, delay a dream. And the conversation is the moment when that suspicion becomes real. It is easier to live in the comfortable ambiguity of the unknown than to face the sharp clarity of a difficult reality. We delay the conversation because we are delaying the consequence. By naming these four fears, the fear of judgment, the fear of conflict, the fear of rejection, and the fear of realizing a painful truth, we have already begun to take away their power. They thrive in the shadows of the unsaid. When you bring them into the light, you can look at them not as impenetrable barriers, but as understandable emotional reflexes. Think of these financial discussions as a sensitive instrument, like a finely tuned set of scales. If one side is weighed down by these heavy, unspoken fears, the whole system is out of balance. Harmony is instantly lost. To restore that balance, we have to treat the emotional weight first, before we touch the practical subject matter. How do we begin to lift these weights? It starts with an act of internal kindness and neutrality. You must separate your self-worth from your net worth. This is a difficult, ongoing process, but it is the prerequisite for peace. Before you approach anyone else, ask yourself, what story am I telling myself about my financial situation? Am I telling myself, I am irresponsible because of this debt? Am I telling myself, I am a failure because my savings aren't larger? The truth is, your financial situation is a set of facts and a series of decisions. It does not define your character, your intelligence, or your inherent value as a person. The moment you internalize that financial status is a condition and not a definition, you begin to lessen the defensive armor you carry into every discussion. When you can look at your own financial situation with neutral curiosity, rather than with shame or self-condemnation, you are far less likely to interpret the other person's questions as attacks. Furthermore, we must practice extending neutrality to the other person. A common cause of heaviness is assuming the other person has malicious intent. When a partner asks, "Why did you spend so much on that?" the fear-based interpretation is, "They think I'm reckless and they are trying to control me." But a more balanced, neutral interpretation could be, "They are worried about our savings goal and are seeking clarity." When a parent says, "You should be saving more at your age," the fear-based interpretation is, "They are judging my entire life path and think I'm failing." But the neutral interpretation could be, "They lived through a time of scarcity and are expressing their genuine concern for my future security." The way we frame the other person's motivation determines the weight of the conversation. By choosing the most generous, balanced interpretation possible, we make the air lighter and the dialogue safer. We stop preparing for battle and start preparing for collaboration. This journey, from avoidance to open conversation, is a journey toward deeper truth and lasting harmony. It's about replacing the anxiety of the unknown with the calm power of shared understanding. Silence is a temporary relief, but it is ultimately a poison to connection, allowing misunderstandings and resentment to grow in the dark. Honesty, spoken with grace and neutrality, is the foundation for an agreement that works for everyone. The first step in achieving peaceful money is simply acknowledging that the weight exists, naming the fears that create it, and choosing, right now, to separate your worth from your wealth. This internal decision is the very first step toward opening the door to those healthier conversations we are seeking. You are choosing balance over defense. You have now given these heavy fears a name. You have looked them in the eye. Now you can begin the work of gently, firmly setting them aside. The path to ease and harmony starts here. Reflective close. Take a moment now to reflect on a money conversation you've been avoiding. Don't focus on the numbers right now. Instead, focus on the feeling. Which of the four fears, judgment, conflict, rejection, or painful truth, is the heaviest weight on your side of the scale? By identifying this fear, you are already halfway to releasing its grip, allowing your next financial discussion to start from a place of clarity, not stress. Chapter 2: The Cost of Avoidance. In the previous chapter, we acknowledged the heavy emotional weights, the fears of judgment, conflict, and rejection that make us want to avoid talking about money. The natural impulse is to step away from the tension, to choose temporary peace over the discomfort of a difficult discussion. But here is a fundamental truth we must absorb. Avoiding money conversations doesn't prevent conflict. It merely delays it, often making the eventual fallout far worse. Silence might feel like a diplomatic choice in the moment, a way to keep the scales of interaction perfectly still. Yet this stillness is deceptive. Beneath the surface, the refusal to speak about a financial matter acts like slow-moving poison to the health of any relationship. Whether it is with a partner, a family member, or a business associate. The cost of avoidance is steep, and it is paid not just in dollars, but in trust, clarity, and genuine harmony. The primary cost of avoidance is the silent, corrosive buildup of unspoken expectations and assumptions. When a couple doesn't discuss their household budget, each person privately develops a set of rules about how money should be spent, saved, and managed. One person might assume that large purchases should be discussed first, while the other assumes they have autonomy up to a certain dollar amount. One might expect a certain percentage of income to go into long-term savings, while the other expects to use extra funds for immediate enjoyment. These assumptions are invisible until they are violated. And when they are violated, the resulting explosion feels sudden and shocking, but it has been months, even years in the making. The fight is not actually about the new television or the expensive dinner. The fight is about the betrayal of an uncommunicated rule. You cannot hold someone accountable to a standard they didn't know existed. Avoidance forces people into a shadow play of guesswork and mind reading, and that is a recipe for resentment. Resentment is the emotional residue left when an expectation goes unmet. It is a slow, steady drain on the relationship's energy. It says, "You should have known better," or "You should have seen what I needed." This feeling of being consistently let down, all because a clear conversation was sidestepped, introduces a deep and corrosive imbalance. Harmony requires both parties to feel seen and understood, and avoidance guarantees that neither party truly is. Another major cost of avoidance is the creation of financial drift. Think of a boat sailing without a set course. If you and your partner, or even you and your younger self, never sat down to clearly define goals, saving for a house, paying off a debt, planning for retirement, you will simply drift. You might be financially solvent today, but where will you be in 5 years? Drift is comfortable in the short term, but it is deeply destabilizing in the long run. It means reacting to circumstances rather than proactively shaping them. When money conversations are avoided, financial decisions become reactionary. You don't save because you decide to. You save whatever happens to be left over. You don't allocate funds based on values. You allocate them based on the most immediate, loudest demand. This lack of intentionality creates a continuous feeling of being slightly behind, slightly off balance. This drift is particularly damaging because it postpones necessary, difficult decisions. Perhaps a career change is required to reach a mutual goal, or maybe a spending habit needs to be aggressively curbed. If you avoid the conversation now, you only ensure that when the crisis finally forces the issue, the options available will be fewer, and the required changes will be more drastic and painful. Clarity in the long run is the true foundation of harmony. Clarity means facing facts, aligning on goals, and creating a shared map. Avoidance leaves everyone wandering in the fog, increasing the likelihood of crashing into one another. We must also recognize the cost of unequal burden and responsibility. In many relationships where financial conversations are avoided, the emotional and practical weight of managing money falls disproportionately onto one person. This is often the person who is naturally more inclined toward organization, or simply the one who can no longer bear the anxiety of the unknown. This creates a severe imbalance. The person carrying the burden often feels like a parent or a manager, while the other person feels like a child or an employee. The manager becomes frustrated by the lack of participation and the need to constantly monitor, and the employee feels judged and untrusted. This dynamic is toxic to equality and partnership. A balanced relationship requires shared accountability. By avoiding the joint conversation, you are essentially signing a contract that says, "I outsource the worry to you." This does not feel loving, respectful, or fair. It is a clear violation of the pursuit of equilibrium, leaving one side strained and the other disconnected. When one person is constantly operating in the dark, they cannot make informed choices. If they don't know the full financial picture, how can they make responsible spending decisions? Their lack of knowledge becomes a justification for their lack of participation, creating a reinforcing negative cycle that drains both the relationship's connection and its financial stability. The final, and perhaps most subtle, cost of avoidance is the erosion of self-trust. When you repeatedly silence a critical voice that tells you, "You need to talk about this," you are telling yourself that maintaining external peace is more important than speaking your own truth. This act of self-betrayal is incredibly damaging. If you know, for example, that you cannot afford a shared expense but agree to it anyway just to prevent an argument, you walk away feeling anxious, resentful, and disempowered. You have prioritized the other person's comfort over your own financial and emotional integrity. Over time, this practice teaches you that your own needs and boundaries are secondary. It makes you feel small and invisible in your own life. When you consistently avoid necessary conflict to achieve superficial calm, you are undermining your confidence in your ability to handle difficult truths and negotiate fairly for yourself. A relationship where you cannot speak your truth is not a harmonious relationship. It is a controlled one. True harmony is built on the secure, unwavering knowledge that you can bring your full, authentic self, including your financial realities and concerns, to the table and still be loved and respected. To lift these emotional weights, we must embrace clarity as an act of profound kindness and respect. We need to reframe the conversation in our minds. Instead of viewing the discussion as a necessary evil or a threat to peace, view it as a joint act of building safety and security. Imagine two people building a beautiful, balanced structure. They need to talk constantly about the weight distribution, the materials, and the foundation. If they avoid the discussion, the structure will eventually collapse. The conversation, then, is not the problem. It is the tool that ensures stability. The shift in perspective starts with a single decision. I will trade temporary quiet for lasting clarity. This requires courage, yes, but it is a gentle courage, guided by the desire for mutual well-being. It means accepting that a few minutes of uncomfortable truth now can prevent years of quiet resentment later. When you decide to speak, even if your hands are shaking slightly, you are doing more than managing money. You are actively demonstrating a commitment to the long-term health and stability of your connection. You are showing respect for the other person by trusting them with the full picture, and you are showing respect for yourself by honoring your own needs. The next time you feel the impulse to step back, to say, "We'll talk about it later," remind yourself of the high price of avoidance. The unspoken expectations, the financial drift, the unequal burden, and the slow erosion of self-trust. These costs are not small. They drain the energy from both your wallet and your relationships. They are the antithesis of the harmony we seek. By committing to clarity, we are not inviting conflict. We are inviting a sustainable, honest, and truly balanced way of moving through the world together. We are choosing to build a sturdy foundation where respect and understanding can flourish, making all future money conversations not just tolerable, but ultimately empowering. The silence has had its reign. It is time to let true, constructive dialogue begin. Reflective close. Think about the last time you avoided a specific money conversation. What was the hidden cost of that silence? Was it resentment, financial drift, or an unequal burden? Recognize that the relief you felt in the moment of avoidance was temporary, and the expense was significant. Today, make a quiet commitment to replace one instance of avoidance with one act of clarifying truth, knowing that clarity is the foundation of genuine, lasting peace. Chapter 3: Creating a Safe Space for Dialogue. We've established that the reason money conversations feel so heavy is not the numbers themselves, but the emotional baggage we bring to the table. We've also seen that silence is not a sustainable path to peace. It is merely a deferral of conflict. The next, crucial step is realizing that peaceful money conversations start long before the numbers enter the discussion. They begin with intentional groundwork, the creation of an atmosphere where both vulnerability and honesty can thrive. This is about establishing a safe space for dialogue. Think of it like setting up a finely balanced scale. You cannot measure anything accurately if the environment is windy, shaky, or rushed. You must create quiet, stable conditions first. The same principle applies to financial discussions. You must create emotional safety before you can weigh facts and figures. Creating this safety involves three key elements that relate directly to our environment and our state of mind: tone, timing, and empathy. The power of tone. Tone is the emotional temperature of the conversation. It is not just what you say, but how you say it. A person can utter the most factually correct statement about a budget, but if their tone is sharp, accusatory, or condescending, the other person will immediately move into defensiveness. The discussion, then, is over before it even begins. To ensure your tone invites cooperation rather than conflict, you must cultivate a tone of partnership. This means consciously replacing I versus you language with we language. Instead of saying, "You spent too much on that subscription this month," which sounds like an attack on their judgment, try, "We need to look at how this subscription fits into our current savings plan." Instead of asking, "Why haven't you paid that bill yet?" which suggests personal laziness or failure, try, "How should we prioritize this bill alongside the others we need to cover this week?" Notice the shift. The focus moves from blame to problem solving. The we makes it a shared challenge, a joint effort to restore balance instead of a public indictment. Achieving this partnership tone requires you to first regulate your own internal state. If you approach the conversation when you are feeling angry, anxious, or judgmental, your body language, pace of speech, and facial expression will instantly transmit that negativity, regardless of the gentle words you choose. Before you initiate the talk, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself, am I centered enough right now to speak with kindness? If the answer is no, take 5 minutes. Take a walk. Write down your immediate, volatile feelings privately. Get to a place where your emotional scale is leveled before you attempt to bring the external conversation into balance. True emotional safety starts with internal peace. A soft, measured, and matter-of-fact tone signals respect. It tells the other person, I value our connection more than I value winning this point. The critical element of timing. If tone is the temperature, timing is the atmosphere. A difficult conversation attempted at the wrong time is doomed to fail. Good timing shows deep respect for the other person's mental and emotional capacity. Avoid the 3 classic mistakes of poor timing. 1. The ambush. This is the classic, hey, can we talk for a minute? Followed by dropping a financial bomb while the other person is rushing out the door, cooking dinner, or trying to unwind after a long day. Ambushing someone ensures they feel cornered, disrespected, and immediately defensive. Dialogue requires attention, and you cannot demand attention through surprise. 2. The weaponized discussion. This occurs during or immediately after an unrelated conflict. When emotions are already high, perhaps after a parenting disagreement or a stressful work day, bringing up money is not an effort at resolution. It is often a continuation of the fight. Financial discussions must occur when the relationship is in a state of relative calm, or they will be infected by the previous tension. 3. The rushed moment. Trying to squeeze a complex discussion about debt or long-term goals into a 5-minute gap before a meeting or while watching a movie. Complex subjects demand intellectual space. Rushing implies the conversation is a trivial chore you want to get over with, which invalidates the topic and the other person's feelings about it. The solution is to schedule and propose. Instead of ambushing, propose the conversation clearly and calmly. I would like to dedicate 45 minutes on Thursday evening to talk through next year's savings goals. Is that a good time for you, or would Friday work better? This simple act of proposing a time does 3 important things. 1. It respects the other person's autonomy. They have the power to accept or adjust the time, making them a partner in the process from the very start. 2. It allows for preparation. Both people can gather necessary documents, facts, or simply mentally prepare themselves for a focused, thoughtful discussion, reducing the element of surprise and fear. 3. It elevates the discussion. By setting aside dedicated, protected time, you signal that the subject is important, serious, and worthy of uninterrupted attention. Furthermore, choose a neutral physical setting. Avoid highly stressful or public places. A quiet corner of the living room, a focused time at the kitchen table, or even a walk in a peaceful park can help. The physical environment should reinforce the calm, cooperative atmosphere you are trying to create. Empathy as the foundation of safety. Empathy is the cornerstone of creating emotional safety. It is the ability to temporarily step into the other person's shoes and understand their perspective, to realize that their emotional history with money is different from yours. Remember the fears we discussed in Chapter 1. The fear of judgment, the fear of rejection. Empathy is the balm that soothes these fears. When you enter a financial discussion, you must consciously suspend your own belief that your approach is the only correct one. You must recognize that the other person's spending habits, saving priorities, or anxieties are rooted in their life experience. Did they grow up with scarcity? Their priority might be hoarding cash and security, which might look like stinginess to you. Did they grow up in a home where money was a constant source of stress? They might avoid looking at the numbers entirely, which might look like irresponsibility to you. Do they associate spending on certain items, travel, gifts, experiences with their primary love language or sense of identity. Their spending might look frivolous to you. Empathy requires you to seek the underlying reason before you criticize the behavior. To practice empathy, begin the conversation not with a statement of fact or a demand, but with a statement of shared goal and acknowledgement of difficulty. Try this approach. I know that talking about money can feel really stressful, and I appreciate you setting this time aside. My goal for this conversation is for us to feel more secure and more aligned about our shared future. I want to understand your biggest financial priority right now, and I promise to listen without interrupting. This statement is powerful because it does three things simultaneously. One, it validates the difficulty. I know this feels stressful. This immediately lowers defenses. Two, it defines a collaborative goal, to feel more secure and aligned. This frames the conversation positively. Three, it sets a respectful, empathetic rule. I promise to listen without interrupting. This models the behavior you wish to receive. Empathy is the diplomatic art of seeing two truths at once, your own need for clarity and their need for dignity. It is the key to maintaining balance when the subject matter itself is unstable. The role of preparation and structure. Finally, a safe space is a structured space. Unstructured conversations often devolve into emotional chaos because there is no clear direction. Before your scheduled dialogue, prepare two things: your facts and your opening statement. 1. Your facts. If you are going to discuss a budget, have the numbers ready. Avoid vague accusations like, "We spend too much money on food." Instead, present the neutral fact. "Last month we allocated $800 for groceries, but the actual spending was $1,050. Facts are neutral. They are less likely to trigger defensiveness than personal opinions. 2. Your opening statement. As discussed, this should focus on purpose and partnership, not problems. Use a simple, clear structure. Acknowledge, "Thank you for meeting. I know this can be hard." State the goal neutral. "I want us to find a plan that makes us both feel completely secure and excited about our next goal." State the topic fact-based. Specifically, "I want to look at how we can get our savings rate up to 20% starting next quarter." Open the floor. Before I share my idea, what is the single most important financial priority in your mind right now? By bringing facts and a clear, collaborative structure, you contain the emotional chaos. The conversation has guardrails. The focus remains on the path forward, rather than digging through the mistakes of the past. Creating a safe space for dialogue is an act of love, respect, and profound relational intelligence. It is the art of balancing the intensity of a difficult subject with the kindness of a gentle environment. When you handle the atmosphere with care, by choosing a calm tone, setting respectful timing, and leading with genuine empathy, you transform a potential battlefield into a shared drawing board. You make it possible for both of you to put down your shields and work together toward a peaceful, aligned financial life. Reflective close. Think about the next financial conversation you need to have. Where could you improve the timing? Could you replace an ambush with a thoughtful proposal? How could you adjust your tone to move from an "I versus you" focus to a collaborative "we"? By focusing on these elements, you are not just preparing for a talk. You are intentionally building a stronger, more harmonious foundation for your relationship. Chapter 4. Listening without defensiveness. We have successfully navigated the emotional minefield of avoidance and created a safe, structured space for dialogue. Now the conversation begins. This is the moment where true harmony is either built or instantly shattered. The crucial skill needed here is not speaking, but listening. Money, perhaps more than any other topic besides identity, triggers our ego. It is deeply tied to our sense of competence, success, and control. When someone expresses a concern about a financial choice we have made, or when they propose a plan that seems to criticize our current reality, the instinctive response is self-protection. We immediately feel the need to justify, explain, or deflect. This is defensiveness, and it is the single greatest enemy of productive financial dialogue. Defensiveness throws the delicate scales of conversation wildly out of balance. Listening without defensiveness is the art of absorbing information, even information that feels like an accusation, without immediately preparing a counterargument. It means listening not to reply, but to understand. This skill is the pathway to trust, and trust is the currency of peaceful money conversations. Why defensiveness destroys dialogue? When you listen defensively, you are not actually hearing the other person's words. You are only hearing the threat those words pose to your self-image. Your internal monologue is loud, overriding the speaker. They think I'm irresponsible. They have no idea how hard I work. I can explain why that purchase was necessary. This internal noise means that while the other person is still speaking, you are already formulating your rebuttal. You miss the nuances of their concern, the softer emotional plea hidden beneath the facts, and the subtle olive branch they might be extending. The result is a classic breakdown of communication, one the speaker feels unheard. They perceive your focus is entirely on yourself, not on solving the problem together. 2. The listener feels attacked. They perceive the speaker is trying to control or criticize them, rather than seeking partnership. 3. The goal shifts from collaboration to winning. The focus moves away from finding a balanced solution and toward proving who is right and who is wrong. This is why calm, non-defensive listening is the highest form of respect you can offer in a difficult conversation. It signals to the other person, your perspective matters, and I am prioritizing understanding your world over protecting my ego. The practice of calm, non-defensive listening. To move from reacting defensively to listening constructively, you need a conscious, three-part strategy. Acknowledge, clarify, and validate. 1. Acknowledge the feeling. When the other person speaks about money, their words often contain two layers, the fact and the feeling. A defensive listener only hears the fact and reacts to it. An empathetic listener hears both. For example, your partner might say, "Our credit card debt has gone up significantly since the beginning of the year." A defensive internal response. "Well, I wouldn't have had to use the card if you hadn't been so insistent on that expensive trip last summer." A calm, non-defensive response must first acknowledge the feeling, which is usually concern or fear. You can use phrases that buy you a moment of stillness and show you are processing their emotion. "I hear the concern in your voice about the debt. That sounds worrying. I can see why that number is bothering you." By naming the emotion, you instantly diffuse the potential for conflict. You shift the focus from who is to blame to what is the shared emotional state. You are saying, in effect, "I see we are both standing on the same side of this problem." This simple acknowledgement is the first act of re-leveling the conversational scales. To clarify, don't assume. The second step is to seek clarity, but in a way that is open and non-leading. The goal is to ensure you fully understand the speaker's perspective, not just the surface issue. This prevents misinterpretations that can lead to unnecessary arguments. Instead of saying, "You just want me to stop spending money, right?" which is an assumption, you must ask open-ended, non-judgmental questions. When you look at that debt number, what is the biggest thing you feel is at risk? This probes for the deeper, underlying fear, perhaps security or retirement. Could you walk me through the specific impact you see this having on our immediate goals? This asks for context, helping you understand their specific priorities. What specifically are you hoping to achieve or change after this conversation? This directs the focus toward a solution, not just the complaint. This practice of seeking understanding is crucial. By asking clarifying questions, you show genuine engagement. You force yourself to stay present in their narrative, preventing your mind from wandering back to your planned defense. The more information you gather, the less power your ego has to invent scenarios and take offense. 3. Validate the perspective. The third and most powerful step is validation. Validating a perspective is not the same as agreeing with it. You can absolutely disagree with the facts or the proposed solution, while still validating the emotion and the logic behind their concern. Validation looks like this. I can completely understand why you feel anxious when you see that large balance. That makes a lot of sense. If I were in your shoes, focused on saving for the down payment like you are, I would likely have the same reaction to this unexpected cost. It is completely fair and reasonable for you to want more predictability in our monthly outflows. When you validate, you are affirming the other person's reality. You are saying, I see your point of view. It is logical. It is legitimate. This releases a tremendous amount of tension. Once a person feels truly seen and heard, their need to aggressively push their point diminishes, and they become much more receptive to hearing your side. This is where the magic of balanced communication happens. By giving their side a moment of complete, non-defensive space, you have earned the right for them to listen to yours. Staying calm under pressure. Even with the best intentions, certain phrases or financial facts can feel like a direct hit. When you feel that surge of defensiveness, the tightening in your chest, the quickening of your breath, you must have a conscious mechanism to pause. Use a simple internal cue: stop, breathe, center. Physically take a full, slow breath. This short circuit gives your rational mind a chance to override the impulsive, defensive one. Then, use a calming verbal bridge. Instead of launching into a defense, say, that is a very important point, and I need a moment to process that before I respond. I want to make sure I give you a thoughtful answer. This is an elegant, high-level maneuver. It honors their statement, shows respect, and most importantly, buys you the critical time you need to recenter your emotions. It shifts the scales back to equilibrium without sacrificing honesty or dignity. True strength in dialogue is not about having the perfect answer ready. It is about having the emotional discipline to remain present, calm, and open to understanding. By practicing calm, non-defensive listening, you are not just managing a financial issue. You are modeling a deeper commitment to partnership. You are proving that your relationship is a safe harbor where difficult truths can be spoken without fear of emotional reprisal. This willingness to listen first, without the shield of defensiveness, is the most powerful tool for turning potential conflict into pathways of profound collaboration. It establishes trust, creates true clarity, and ensures that the financial decisions you make together are built on a rock-solid foundation of mutual respect. Reflective close. Think about a difficult comment you often hear regarding money. Now, practice your non-defensive response. Instead of rehearsing your defense, rehearse your validation. What is the most reasonable, understandable emotion or perspective behind that comment? By acknowledging that truth, even if you disagree with the facts, you open the pathway to trust and transform the dynamic from attack and defense to collaboration and peace. Chapter 5. Speaking with Grace and Clarity. If the previous chapter taught us the power of stillness and absorption through non-defensive listening, this chapter teaches us the power of articulation and expression. Once you've listened calmly and processed the other person's perspective, the conversational scale must swing back slightly to allow you to present your own truth. The central challenge here is to achieve clarity without harshness. We need to find words that are precise enough to convey our financial reality, kind enough to honor the other person's dignity, and firm enough to respect our own boundaries. This, truly, is the art of speaking with grace and precision. Many people stumble at this stage for one of two main reasons. They are either too harsh, meaning they lead with judgment and accusation, or they are too soft, meaning they hedge their request and obscure their needs for the sake of immediate peace. Neither approach serves the goal of long-term harmony. The key to balanced articulation is a conscious, three-part framework. Own your position, use neutral language, and state the specific ask. Own your position. The power of I statements. The most common trap in difficult conversations is the use of you statements. These inherently assign blame and trigger defensiveness. For instance, think of saying, "You always spend money on things we don't need," or perhaps, "You need to contribute more to the household savings." These statements aren't about facts. They are judgments about the other person's character or behavior. They immediately shift the emotional scale away from partnership and into conflict. To speak with grace and clarity, you must own your feelings and your boundaries by shifting deliberately to I statements. An I statement frames the situation through your own experience and need, rather than as a decree about the other person's failure. It is non-negotiable because it is simply stating your internal reality. Consider the difference. Instead of saying, "You make me nervous when you don't check the bank balance," which focuses on their action, you should say, "I feel a lot of anxiety when I don't have an accurate picture of the balance." This focuses on your internal state. Instead of saying, "You never prioritize our retirement," which is a judgment, try, "I feel strongly that our long-term security requires us to prioritize putting $500 into retirement this month." This states your need. And rather than saying, "You shouldn't have bought that," which is clearly critical, try, "I am concerned about that purchase because it moves us further away from our shared goal of paying off the car loan." This outlines the consequence to the plan. The I statement is powerful because it respects the dignity of the listener. You are not telling them who they are. You are simply stating what you require to feel safe, secure, or aligned. This is crucial. By speaking only to your own reality, you bypass their ego and invite them into a conversation about meeting your mutual needs. Use neutral and fact-based language. Once you own your position with I statements, you must ensure the rest of your language remains neutral, balanced, and fact-based. This is the difference between emotional opinion and grounded reality. Financial conversations must be built on the solid foundation of facts, not on the shifting sand of emotion. First, avoid absolutes. Words like always, never, constant, huge, and disaster are emotionally charged and inherently inaccurate. They inflate the problem and make the listener feel overwhelmed. Instead of saying, "We are constantly over budget," try saying, "Our grocery spending exceeded the allocated amount by 22% last month." Second, replace judgment with measurement. Emotional language assigns blame. Neutral language provides a precise point of reference. If you are frustrated by a spending habit, do not say, "That is an irresponsible use of money." Say, "That expense, while enjoyable, delays our savings goal by approximately 3 weeks." This states the measurable consequence without imposing a moral judgment. Finally, always spell out numbers for clarity. For a style that aids in immediate understanding when the text is read aloud by a voice narrator, we must always spell out numerical facts. Instead of using the digit 200, use the words 200. This gives the listener's ear time to register the weight of the amount, preventing crucial financial details from rushing past and being missed. Neutral language ensures that the conversation remains anchored to the plan, rather than orbiting around personal grievances. It is a diplomatic tool that allows both parties to look at the same data points together. outside of the heat of personal criticism. State the specific ask. Graceful clarity requires a necessary degree of firmness. Many people articulate their concerns beautifully, but then they fail to state a clear, specific request, fearing that a concrete boundary might upset the balance. This leaves the conversation unresolved and leads directly to future frustration. A complete, balanced communication must therefore end with a precise, actionable ask. Your ask should always be three things. Actionable, meaning it describes a specific action that can be taken. Measurable, meaning it includes a clear, quantifiable metric. And collaborative, meaning it must be framed as a step toward a mutual goal. For example, an incomplete or unclear ask is, "We need to be better about saving." It's too vague and non-actionable. The clear, collaborative ask is, "To achieve our goal of saving $10,000 for the home repair fund, I need to know that we are mutually committing to increasing our automatic transfer from $300 to $500 every month, starting on the 1st of next month." This statement leaves no room for confusion. It connects the action, increasing the transfer, to the motivation, the shared home repair fund, and the exact timing, the 1st of next month. If the issue is shared responsibility, the ask must be equally specific. An unclear ask is, "You need to pay more attention to the bills." The clear, collaborative ask is, "To ensure we share the mental load equally, I need you to take full responsibility for reviewing and submitting all utility payments by the 15th of every month. I will create a shared digital list, and I need you to confirm its completion to me via text by that date." Clarity is not cruel. In fact, it is the highest form of kindness in a financial partnership. It removes the burden of guesswork and creates a transparent, navigable pathway to joint success. Finding the balance between kindness and firmness. The true artistry in speaking with grace and clarity lies in finding the middle ground between being overly aggressive and being overly compliant. This is the very essence of balance. One error is aggression, being too firm and not kind. This speaker prioritizes their goal over the relationship. Their language is filled with demands and ultimatums. While they achieve clarity, they erode the emotional safety, leading the other person to comply out of fear or retreat into silent sabotage. This creates an imbalance toward the self. The other error is compliance, being too kind and not firm. This speaker prioritizes the other person's comfort over their own financial integrity. They present their concern as a question, minimize their needs, and quickly cave to resistance. While they preserve temporary peace, they sacrifice their own needs and create long-term resentment. This creates an imbalance away from the self. The path of graceful clarity is the balanced way. This speaker uses I statements, presents neutral facts, and makes a specific, collaborative ask. They are open to modifying the path, perhaps changing the timeline or the specific expense cut, but they remain firm on the goal, achieving the savings rate or reducing the debt. They are diplomatic, but they are never a doormat. When you speak with this balanced approach, you are standing in your truth without seeking to dominate the other person. You are asserting a boundary not to control them, but to protect the integrity of your shared life and your future. This firmness, delivered with kindness, is inherently respectable and tends to evoke a cooperative response, not a defensive one. This is how you turn simple, often stressful, financial talk into a dignified exchange where two people, committed to mutual success, align their efforts. By speaking with grace and clarity, you ensure that every word contributes to the long-term architecture of a peaceful and financially robust relationship. Reflective close. Review a recent, unclear request you made regarding money. Could you rewrite it using the three-part framework? Own your position, starting with I feel or I need. Use neutral language, no absolutes, just facts, and state a specific actionable ask. Practice saying this rewritten statement aloud in a calm, measured tone. The clarity in your request is a gift to both yourself and your partner. Chapter 6. Finding the balance between needs and wants. We have established the ground rules for conversation. We have learned to listen without defensiveness and to speak with grace and clarity. Now, we arrive at the heart of most financial disagreements, the actual decision-making. When financial conversations stall, it's usually because the two sides of the emotional scale, the need for security and the desire for enjoyment, are pulling in opposite directions. One person might champion the urgent need for a larger savings cushion, while the other prioritizes the immediate want for a fulfilling experience, such as a vacation or a costly hobby. This is not a conflict between right and wrong. It is a tension between two equally valid human drives, the drive to sustain and the drive to enjoy. Harmony is not achieved by eliminating one side, but by finding a balanced, middle ground that honors both practicality and pleasure. The goal is to ensure that financial decisions feel fair, not forced. A decision that feels forced, where one person feels completely deprived of pleasure or completely anxious about security, is a short-term fix that leads to long-term resentment and eventual sabotage. Defining the non-negotiable core. The first step in balancing needs and wants is to clarify what constitutes a need. A need is anything essential for your safety, health, and primary stability. In modern financial life, needs often extend beyond just basic survival. They must include a minimum threshold of security that allows both people to sleep soundly at night. As a partnership, you must sit down and agree on your non-negotiable core. This is the bedrock of your financial life. This often includes 1. Emergency fund threshold. A specific dollar amount or a number of months of expenses that must be maintained in savings, no matter what. 2. Debt floor. A commitment not to take on certain types of consumer debt or to keep existing debt below a specific, agreed-upon ceiling. 3. Essential future planning. Non-optional contributions to long-term goals like retirement accounts or college savings. This process must be collaborative. The moment one person unilaterally decides what the needs are, the other person feels excluded and controlled. By defining the non-negotiable core together, you are creating a mutual promise to your future selves. This commitment takes the foundational security off the table for debate, stabilizing one side of the scale. Once this core is defined and funded, you have created a protective buffer. You are telling yourselves, we are safe. Our foundation is secure. Now let's talk about how to live. This is the point where the dialogue truly opens up for a balanced discussion of wants. The wants conversation, linking joy to values. The biggest mistake people make when discussing wants is treating them as simply frivolous or unnecessary. If someone wants to spend $300 on a beautiful piece of art or $1,000 on a weekend trip, it's not because they are inherently irresponsible. It is because that item or experience is linked to a deeply held value, perhaps aesthetic appreciation, emotional connection, or personal rejuvenation. To bridge the gap between needs and wants, you must shift the conversation from a focus on spending to a focus on values. When a want comes up for discussion, instead of immediately saying, "We can't afford that," use the moment to explore the underlying value. Ask clarifying, empathetic questions like we practiced earlier. What is it about that specific purchase that feels important to you right now? How does this trip contribute to your feeling of being rejuvenated and balanced? If we made room for this, what deeper value would it fulfill for you? By asking these questions, you validate the other person's desire. You elevate the want from a fleeting impulse to a legitimate expression of their inner life. This process helps both of you realize that the conflict isn't money versus fun. It is the priority of values. Is the value of immediate enjoyment higher than the value of accelerated debt payment this month? When you frame it this way, the decision becomes a reflective choice, not a painful sacrifice. The art of the shared financial buffer. To prevent wants from constantly colliding with needs, you must build a flexible zone into your financial plan. This is the financial equivalent of a shock absorber, designed to absorb the tension between security and pleasure. We can call this the shared financial buffer. This buffer has two parts. Part 1, personal discretionary funds. This is the most powerful tool for restoring balance and autonomy. Both individuals in a partnership should have a specific, reasonable amount of money automatically allocated to them each month. Perhaps $200, $200 or $300, $300. That is completely free of discussion or judgment. This personal fund allows the person who values art to buy a small piece without needing approval. It allows the person who values coffee rituals to buy an expensive bag of beans without triggering a conversation. This fund honors individuality and removes the feeling of being controlled, which is a huge source of resentment. It ensures that essential wants are met privately, so they don't become public battlegrounds. Part 2. The Shared Joy Fund. This fund is dedicated to experiences or purchases that benefit both people or the family unit. This is money that is intentionally saved for the vacation, the new piece of furniture, or the weekend getaway. Instead of fighting over spontaneous spending, you agree that $150 is set aside every month into this joy fund. This turns the wanted item from an expense that causes guilt into a future reward that builds excitement. It brings the couple together, focusing their energy on the positive accumulation of fun, not the negative avoidance of spending. By creating these dual buffers, you allow the scale to sway gracefully. The non-negotiable needs are met first, and the highly desirable wants are structured into the plan, removing the tension between them. The balanced decision formula. When a specific large purchase or desire comes up that exceeds the buffer funds, use a structured approach to find the balanced decision. The conversation should not be yes or no, but how and when. Use this three-part formula. First, acknowledge the cost of deferral. If you say no to the want, what is the emotional cost to the person? If the trip is crucial for their mental health, the cost of deferral might be high anxiety and burnout. If the art is crucial to their sense of home, the cost might be quiet unhappiness. Acknowledge this cost with empathy. I know postponing this trip means you lose the chance to recharge, and that feeling is valid. Second, acknowledge the cost of proceeding. If you say yes to the want, what is the clear, measurable financial cost? This is not about judgment. It is about facts. If we take this trip now, it means we must postpone the debt payoff by exactly 6 weeks, or we need to mutually agree to temporarily cut the dining out budget by $150 per month for the next 2 months. Third, find the collaborative trade-off. This is where balance is achieved. You present the trade-off, asking for a joint decision. Given the clear need to recharge and the 6-week delay on debt payoff, are we in agreement that the emotional benefit of the trip outweighs the financial cost, and that we will both commit to the temporary dining cut to compensate? This framework forces the trade-off into the open. It removes the illusion that you can have everything immediately without any consequence. A fair decision is one where both people clearly understand and agree to the price, both the financial price and the price paid in deferred goals. By using this approach, You transform a conflict into an exercise in collaborative financial engineering. You are not sacrificing one side for the other. You are intentionally, peacefully, balancing the weight of security and the weight of enjoyment, ensuring the decision serves the whole person and the whole partnership. This is what it means to make a decision that feels fair, sustainable, and truly harmonious. Reflective close. Think about a conflict you recently had over a financial want. Were you only focused on the cost? Or did you take time to explore the deeper value the other person was seeking? Commit this week to defining your non-negotiable financial core and discussing the creation of a shared joy fund. By intentionally allocating resources for pleasure, you remove the tension from spending and build a system that honors both security and joy. Chapter 7. Turning conflict into collaboration. Despite the best intentions, the clearest communication, and the most thoughtful preparation, you will inevitably hit moments of sharp disagreement about money. It's unavoidable. The conflict might stem from different life values, different risk tolerances, or simply different ideas about the quickest path to a shared goal. The critical distinction at this juncture is this: disagreement does not have to mean division. The highest level of financial maturity lies in the ability to reframe conflict. Instead of seeing a disagreement as a threat to your harmony, you learn to see it as an opportunity for problem solving. You treat the conflict not as a fight between two people, but as a hurdle that two committed partners must overcome together. This shift in perspective is the single most powerful tool for ensuring that your commitment to balance and peace remains unshaken, even when the financial waters get choppy. The difference between arguing and collaborating. When most people argue about money, they engage in a process that is fundamentally adversarial. Each person becomes an advocate for their own position, focusing all their energy on convincing the other side that they are right. This is the cycle of argument. One assertion: I state my position, e.g., we need to invest this bonus. 2. Counter-assertion: you state yours, e.g., no, we need to pay down the mortgage faster. 3. Justification: I defend my position with facts and emotion. 4. Rebuttal: you attack my facts and emotions. 5. Stalemate: the emotional tension rises and nothing is solved. Collaboration, however, follows a completely different path. It treats the two opposing positions not as enemies, but as input for a larger, better solution that neither person had considered alone. This is the cycle of collaboration. 1. Identification: we jointly define the core problem, e.g., how do we best use this bonus money to maximize both security and growth? 2. Exploration: I present the logic and value behind my idea, growth risk tolerance. You present the logic and value behind yours, security debt reduction. 3. Integration: we look for the common ground and explore creative solutions that combine the best of both. 4. Resolution: we commit to a hybrid plan that feels fair to both parties. The key mental shift is moving from the question, who is right, to the question, what is the best possible answer for us? Identifying the underlying value in the conflict. Every financial disagreement is merely a symptom of a deeper, unaligned value. To move from arguing to collaborating, you must gently probe to find the root value the other person is defending. For example, a conflict about whether to spend $10,000 on a business venture or put it into savings is not about the $10,000. The person advocating for the business venture might be defending the value of ambition, autonomy, or potential freedom. The person advocating for savings might be defending the value of predictability, safety, or generational stability. If you attack the business idea, you attack their ambition. If you dismiss the savings idea, you dismiss their need for safety. Neither approach works. The collaborative approach is to acknowledge and validate both values simultaneously. I hear clearly that you value the potential freedom and growth that this venture represents, and that is a powerful goal. I also hear my own deep-seated need for us to maintain a predictable security net. How can we build a plan that allows us to pursue growth while firmly protecting our safety net? This transforms the conflict from a fight over money into a strategic session about how to honor two important values simultaneously. Often, the solution is a creative split. Use $5,000 for the business venture, and allocate the other $5,000 to the security fund. This is a compromise that honors the core value of each person, the power of the "and" solution. Most people treat financial decisions as either-or problems. Either we save or we spend. Either we pay down debt or we invest. This binary thinking is restrictive and often leads to the forced, unhappy compromises we are trying to avoid. Collaboration relies on searching for the "and" solution. The "and" solution is a creative integration that seeks to satisfy the core needs of both opposing viewpoints. It requires you to set aside your initial proposal and genuinely explore a third path. Here is how you search for the "and." The standoff. One person wants to buy a new, more reliable car immediately for $7,000. The other person insists they must keep saving for another 6 months to afford a slightly older model in cash. The collaborative question. Is there a way we can acquire the reliability you need and still avoid taking on a large loan and shorten the overall time commitment? The "and" solution. Perhaps they agree to use $3,000 in savings now to purchase a decent used car that solves the immediate reliability problem, and then commit to aggressively saving the next $4,000 over 3 months to trade up quickly to the preferred model without incurring long-term debt. This solution is superior because it acknowledges the urgency of the need, reliability while upholding the value of the need, avoiding debt. It is a plan born of cooperation, not contention. The scales are balanced because both core concerns were addressed, creating rules of engagement for conflict. To ensure that conflict remains productive and collaborative, you must agree to a set of rules, a covenant of conduct, before the disagreement flares up. These rules serve as your joint emergency brake, ensuring the discussion never descends into a personal attack. 3 essential rules of engagement. 1. No name-calling or character attacks, the dignity rule. This is non-negotiable. The moment a discussion shifts from addressing a financial behavior, that decision cost us $200, to criticizing character, you are so irresponsible, the conversation must stop immediately. Either person has the right to gently say, "We agreed to keep this focused on the facts, not on character. Let's take a 5-minute break to recenter." 2. Focus on the future, not the past, the forward rule. Avoid resurrecting old financial mistakes as ammunition. While past behavior informs the present, collaboration focuses on what we do next. If someone brings up an old mistake, gently pivot. That mistake was made, and we learned from it. Right now, the relevant question is what the most balanced action is for the next 6 months. 3. Commit to a cooldown and re-engage, the respect rule. If the conversation becomes heated, you must both have the right to call a pause. This is not walking out. It is an agreed-upon, temporary ceasefire. The rule is, I need 20 minutes to cool down, but I commit to re-engaging at 9 o'clock tonight. This protects the peace while upholding the commitment to resolution. This structure prevents emotional blow-ups from derailing the entire process. By framing conflict as a puzzle to be solved together, and by adhering to these respectful rules of engagement, You transform your financial differences from a source of anxiety into a pathway to deeper understanding. You demonstrate that your relationship is strong enough to withstand difficult truths, and that your commitment to one another is greater than any disagreement over dollars and cents. This is the ultimate expression of collaborative balance, finding a creative, respectful solution that honors the dignity and the core values of both people involved. Conflict, when managed correctly, is not the end of harmony. It is the strenuous but necessary work required to build a stronger, more resilient peace. Reflective close. Think about a current financial disagreement you are facing. Can you identify the underlying value the other person is defending? Try reframing the problem from an either or choice to a how can we have both question. Your commitment to seeking the and solution is the most effective way to turn division into a powerful, aligned collaboration. Chapter 8. The Power of Neutral Language. We've talked about what to say and how to structure a disagreement, but now we need to focus on the specific words we choose. Words are incredibly powerful tools. They can either inflame a tense situation or gently soothe it, creating a pathway to balanced cooperation. In financial discussions, the wrong word choice can instantly undo all the hard work you've done to create a safe space. Accusatory or emotionally charged language acts like a match to dry kindling, igniting the other person's defensiveness and sending the conversation into a downward spiral. The goal is to cultivate neutral language, phrasing that is objective, fact-based, and devoid of judgment. Neutral language is the diplomat of your financial life. It keeps the focus on the problem and the plan, not on personal failure or blame. Recognizing and replacing inflammatory language. Inflammatory language relies heavily on three elements that must be purged from your financial discussions: judgment, absolutes, and minimization. 1. The judgment trap. Judgmental language doesn't describe the situation. It attempts to describe the person who caused the situation. This is where you see the use of loaded terms that carry moral weight. Inflammatory. You were irresponsible with that spending. Neutral. The cost exceeded our allocated budget for that category. Inflammatory. That purchase was totally selfish. Neutral. I see that purchase prioritizes individual need over our shared saving goal. Notice the difference. The neutral phrasing addresses the measurable financial fact. It points to the consequence of the action on the joint plan. The judgmental phrasing, however, attacks the other person's character, forcing them to defend their entire identity rather than just the single decision. When you remove the judgment, you immediately invite cooperation. No one wants to fight against a fact, but everyone will fight against an accusation. 2. Avoiding absolutes. We touched on this earlier, but it deserves deeper attention. Absolute words like always, never, everything, and nothing are almost universally untrue, and they instantly trigger defensiveness because they are exaggerations. Inflammatory. You never seem to track the expenses properly. Neutral. When I reviewed the ledger, I found that the last 3 expense reports were incomplete. Inflammatory. We always run out of money by the 20th. Neutral. Our tracking shows that our discretionary funds are typically depleted by the 20th of the month. By replacing the absolute with a specific factual metric, the last 3 reports, or by the 20th of the month, you achieve 2 powerful things. First, you make your statement undeniable and thus less prone to argument. Second, you pinpoint the problem with the precision required for a solution. Accurate, specific language is inherently neutral. Vague, absolute language is inherently hostile. 3. Eliminating minimization. Minimization occurs when you dismiss the other person's concerns or contributions. This is common when one partner earns or manages significantly more than the other. Inflammatory. This little debt is nothing to worry about, I can handle it. Neutral. While this debt is manageable, I acknowledge your concern about carrying any unnecessary interest. Inflammatory. My contribution is way more important than your small savings. Neutral. I appreciate your consistent contribution to our shared savings, and I want to ensure we align it with my larger deposit this month. Minimization is deeply disrespectful. It implies the other person's anxieties or efforts are trivial. Neutral language ensures that every contribution and every fear is treated with equal weight and respect. This is the ultimate act of balancing the conversation, making sure both people feel that their input matters equally, regardless of the size of their wallet. The power of conditional language. Neutral language is not just about removing negative words. It's about adding positive, cooperative ones. The most effective tool for inviting collaboration is conditional language. Conditional phrasing uses words like could, might, perhaps, if, and we could explore to present ideas as flexible possibilities, rather than as rigid commands. This respects the other person's autonomy and invites them to participate in the solution. Commanding. We need to cut the grocery budget by $50. Conditional. We could explore the possibility of cutting the grocery budget by $50. How might that feel to you? Commanding. You have to switch to the cheaper insurance plan. Conditional. If we switch to the cheaper insurance plan, it might free up $200 a month. Could we look at the potential trade-offs together? Conditional language acknowledges that every decision involves trade-offs and that the final decision should be mutual. It makes the conversation feel like a brainstorming session, not a negotiation where one person holds all the power. It subtly shifts the dynamic from compliance to co-creation. Using the plan as a neutral third party. One of the most effective strategies for maintaining neutrality is to constantly refer to an established, agreed-upon document, system, or goal. This document becomes the neutral third party in your discussion. Instead of saying, "You are spending too much money," which is accusatory, you say, "The plan allocates $500 to this category, and we've currently spent $600. The plan is not emotional. The plan does not judge. The plan is simply a set of shared rules." When you refer to the plan, you frame the issue as, "We are both committed to this shared blueprint, and we need to figure out why the blueprint is being ignored or if the blueprint needs modification." The problem is with the alignment to the document, not with the person. This is why establishing clear, written financial goals is so critical, as we discussed in Chapter 6. That structure provides the anchor of neutrality you can return to when emotions begin to flare. A diplomatic vocabulary, the top 3 phrases. When a difficult truth must be spoken, rely on these 3 diplomatic phrases to soften the impact while maintaining clarity. 1. That is a valid concern. This phrase, used after listening to their position, validates their emotional perspective before you offer your counterpoint. It shows you heard their fear or frustration. By validating their emotion, you create a momentary sense of peace, making them much more receptive to hearing the objective facts you are about to present. 2. I'm curious about the alignment here. This phrase is a gentle, yet firm way to question a decision or spending choice without expressing judgment. It implies that the decision might be excellent on its own, but you are uncertain how it fits with the larger, agreed-upon structure. It's a curiosity about the system, not a criticism of their mind. 3. How might we balance this? This is the ultimate collaborative phrase. It instantly shifts the focus from the problem to the solution and immediately invites the other person back into partnership. It acknowledges the difficulty of the situation, the need for balance, and presents the next step as a joint challenge. By replacing sharp, emotionally loaded words with neutral, conditional, and diplomatic language, you are actively choosing harmony over hostility. You are upholding the principle that financial discussions are not about winning or losing, but about finding a fair, peaceful, and sustainable path forward together. Reflective close. Over the next week, observe your internal and external vocabulary during stressful financial moments. Can you identify one absolute word, like always or never, that you frequently use? Make a conscious commitment to replacing it with a factual metric. The small act of choosing one balanced word over an inflammatory one can dramatically change the emotional climate of your next financial conversation. Chapter 9. Building Agreements That Last. We've navigated the heavy feelings, developed the skills to listen and speak clearly, and learned to turn conflict into collaboration. Now, we arrive at the most tangible goal of all this effort: building financial agreements that last. A temporary compromise achieved just to end a difficult conversation is not a lasting agreement. It's a ticking clock. If one person feels severely deprived, or if the plan isn't built on mutual enthusiasm, that compromise will inevitably unravel, leading to future frustration and the breakdown of trust. A durable agreement, one that feels fair, sustainable, and respectful, is built on a foundation of clarity, commitment, and contingency. It requires you to look beyond the immediate moment and design a system that can withstand the inevitable changes and pressures of life. The difference between compromise and collaboration. In traditional negotiation, the goal is often compromise, where both parties give up something they want. It's a shared sacrifice, and the feeling is often one of mutual loss. I didn't get what I wanted, but at least you didn't either. In contrast, our goal is collaboration, where the agreement is a creative integration that results in a shared gain, a plan superior to either individual's initial idea. The feeling is one of mutual empowerment. We built something together that is better than what I could have achieved alone. To move from temporary compromise to lasting collaboration, your agreement must pass the fairness test. Does the agreement distribute both the financial burden and the emotional mental load equally, or at least equitably, according to your agreed-upon values? If one person feels all the responsibility for monitoring, tracking, and worrying, the agreement is fundamentally unstable, no matter how good the budget looks on paper. 3 pillars of a lasting agreement. To ensure your agreements stand the test of time and maintain harmony, focus on these 3 essential pillars: clarity, commitment, and contingency. 1. Clarity. The written blueprint. A verbal agreement, especially concerning money, is too easily forgotten, misinterpreted, or subconsciously revised when stress hits. A lasting agreement must be written down, simple and accessible to everyone involved. This is your financial blueprint. Clarity requires you to define what, who, and when for every major element of your financial life. What is the specific action, e.g., increase investment to $700 per month? Who is responsible for the task? E.g., Jane sets up the automatic transfer. Tom monitors the account balance weekly. When will the action be taken? E.g., the transfer must be set up by the 10th of next month. The balance review happens every Sunday morning. The clarity should extend to your why. Every item in the budget or goal sheet should be tied back to the agreed-upon, underlying values. For instance, the line item for increased savings should be explicitly linked to the value of security for the future, or freedom to change jobs. When the plan feels hard, reminding yourselves of the shared why provides the necessary emotional ballast to maintain commitment. The written plan is the non-emotional, balanced anchor for your commitment. 2. Commitment, the check-in and the review. An agreement, however clear, is useless if it is not routinely reviewed. Life changes, incomes fluctuate, goals shift. Your system must include a commitment to regularly checking the health of the agreement. Schedule a non-negotiable, ritualized time for a financial check-in. For most partnerships, a brief 15-minute weekly huddle and a more in-depth 1-hour monthly review work well. The weekly huddle is short and fact-based. It's not a time for deep debate. It's for quick status checks. Did we stay within budget for groceries this week? Are there any upcoming large expenses we need to prepare for? Did everyone complete their assigned financial tasks? The key is to keep it brief and positive, celebrating small wins and catching small errors before they become big problems. The monthly review is for strategic alignment and emotional processing. Are we still aligned on our 3-year goal? Has either of us felt unduly burdened or deprived by the current plan? Do we need to modify our spending limits based on current events? This systematic commitment to review is what transforms a static document into a dynamic, living system. It ensures that both people have an equal and anticipated opportunity to voice their needs, ensuring the scales of fairness remain balanced over time. 3. Contingency. Planning for the unexpected. The reason most agreements fail is not during the calm times, but when the inevitable unexpected event occurs. A car breakdown, an unexpected medical bill, or a sudden job loss. A lasting agreement anticipates these shocks. You must build contingency plans, agreed-upon rules for what happens when your plan is disrupted. This removes the need for an emotional, high-stress debate when a crisis hits. Ask yourselves collaborative, conditional questions. If one of us were to lose our primary income, what are the 3 immediate budget cuts we have pre-agreed to implement, and how would we utilize the emergency fund? If we encounter an unexpected $1,000 expense, what is our hierarchy of funding it? E.g., first, use the buffer fund. Second, temporarily pause retirement contributions. Third, use the credit card. If we receive an unexpected bonus of $2,000, what is our pre-agreed allocation? E.g., 50% to savings, 30% to debt, 20% to fun. By agreeing to these contingencies in advance, when you are both calm and rational, you protect your relationship during times of stress. When the unexpected happens, you don't argue. You simply reference the agreed-upon plan. This is the ultimate expression of collaborative balance, designing a system that handles future imbalance with poise. The emotional cornerstone. Mutual value. Ultimately, a lasting agreement is one in which both parties feel they have gained something of high value in exchange for their contribution or sacrifice. If the person who prioritizes security agrees to some spending on pleasure, they must genuinely feel that the increase in the other person's happiness and relationship harmony is worth the risk. If the person who prioritizes pleasure agrees to curb spending, they must genuinely feel that the resulting security and the achievement of a major shared goal is worth the deferral of immediate gratification. This is the final balancing act, ensuring that the emotional and psychological payout for the sacrifice is clear, agreed upon, and felt by both people. A sustainable plan is one that manages money effectively while actively nourishing the relationship it is meant to serve. By moving beyond temporary compromises and building agreements based on written clarity, routine commitment, and thoughtful contingency, you create a financial structure that is resilient. You ensure that your shared financial life is an expression of deep respect and mutual support, guaranteeing that both sides feel heard, valued, and completely secure in the plan you built together. Reflective close. Think about the last financial decision you made. Was it a compromise where one or both people felt a sense of loss, Or was it a collaboration where the resulting plan was superior to the starting ideas? Take the first step toward building a lasting agreement by scheduling a financial check-in with your partner and agreeing on one clear, specific contingency plan for the next unexpected financial event. Chapter 10. Honoring Generosity Without Resentment. Money is not just a tool for personal security. It is also a powerful tool for connection, love, and community. We use money to express gratitude, to support those we care about, and to participate in acts of generosity. Yet, the very acts intended to bring us closer can often become sources of immense tension, guilt, and eventually, quiet resentment. The challenge here is to navigate the delicate line between giving freely and giving with hidden strings attached. True generosity, the kind that nourishes both the giver and the receiver, is an act of profound emotional balance. It requires us to give from a place of abundance, not obligation, and to receive without guilt or the expectation of repayment. When generosity breeds resentment, it is almost always because the act was driven by an unspoken expectation or a fundamental imbalance of power. The two kinds of giving. To ensure your generosity is a source of joy and not tension, you must first clarify the intent behind your actions. There are generally two kinds of giving in personal finance: transactional giving and unconditional giving. 1. Transactional giving. This type of giving, often used between family or close friends, comes with a clear, but sometimes implicit, expectation of future return. This includes loans, investments in a family member's business, or long-term financial support. Transactional giving is perfectly healthy if and only if the terms are treated like any other business agreement. Clarity of terms. Spell out the exact amount, the repayment schedule, and what happens if the schedule is missed. Just as we did in Chapter 9, write it down. Clarity of risk. The giver must honestly assess: if this money is never repaid, will I resent the recipient? If the answer is yes, then the money should be offered as a gift or not offered at all. Never lend money that you cannot afford to lose, especially to family. Clarity of role. The giver must agree to step fully out of the managerial role once the terms are set. The agreement is now between the borrower and the terms, not the borrower and the relationship. When transactional giving goes wrong, it's because the giver expects the emotional warmth of a gift, unconditional gratitude, but enforces the cold structure of a loan, repayment. This creates an impossible emotional bind for the receiver. 2. Unconditional giving. This is true generosity. Giving money or resources with absolutely zero expectation of return, acknowledgement, or change in the recipient's behavior. This includes gifts, donations, or offering a financial cushion during a crisis. Unconditional giving requires the giver to perform an important emotional ritual: the release. The moment the funds leave your account, you must mentally and emotionally sever all strings. This is the key to balance. The scale of expectation must be completely empty. If you give $100 to a friend and then judge them for how they spend it, you haven't given a gift. You've exerted control. If you give a gift to a parent but secretly wish they'd spend it on something you approve of, you've attached a condition. To honor generosity without resentment, the act must be completely about the joy of giving, not the management of the receiver. Setting boundaries on generosity. The act of giving should never destabilize your own financial well-being or compromise your core financial needs. Generosity without boundaries quickly leads to financial anxiety and, in turn, resentment toward the very people you are trying to help. Generous boundaries are not selfish. They are an act of self-respect that guarantees your ability to give sustainably. 1. The safety rule. Before extending any gift or loan, Ask yourself this clear, non-negotiable question. If I give this amount, will it compromise my ability to meet my own essential financial needs, e.g., bills, emergency fund threshold, debt repayment for the next 6 months? If the answer is yes, the gift must be reduced or refused. You cannot set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm. Your ability to maintain your own balance is the greatest gift you can offer your loved ones in the long run. 2. The recipient's responsibility rule. When dealing with adult family members or friends who require ongoing support, a generous boundary requires that the recipient demonstrates a shared commitment to their own stability. This means you can generously offer to help, but only if they agree to a concurrent act of self-help. For example, you might offer to pay for a certification course, but only if they commit to attending all classes. You might offer to pay down a debt, but only if they agree to attend one credit counseling session. This approach ensures the gift is not just a temporary fix, but a catalyst for change. It balances your generosity with their responsibility, creating a healthier, more sustainable dynamic that honors the dignity of both people. 3. The graceful no. Sometimes, the most balanced and loving response is a graceful refusal. Saying no to a financial request is not the same as saying no to the person. A graceful refusal requires two components: validation and clarity. Validation. Acknowledge their need with empathy. I hear that you are going through an incredibly tough financial patch right now, and I wish I could do more to help. Clarity. State the boundary clearly, without apology or complicated explanation. My current commitment to our shared savings goal means I don't have the flexible cash flow to manage a loan of that size right now. Then pivot to non-financial help. While I can't lend the money, I can definitely sit down with you to look at your budget or help you update your resume. I want to help you find a sustainable solution. This approach honors the relationship by offering time and practical support, while firmly protecting your financial boundaries. This is diplomacy applied to self-protection, maintaining harmony by upholding your own inner balance. Receiving generosity without guilt. The act of receiving, too, must be approached with balance. When generosity is offered, the recipient often carries a heavy burden of guilt, obligation, or debt. This can make the gift feel crushing rather than empowering. To receive gracefully and maintain harmony. 1. Receive with sincere gratitude, not excessive apology. A simple, heartfelt thank you. This will make a huge difference, and I am deeply grateful is sufficient. Excessive apologies or promises of future repayment can signal shame, which creates an uncomfortable power dynamic. Accept the gift as an act of love, not as an indictment of your situation. 2. Respect the giver's release. Do not spend time detailing how you will repay them or agonizing over their potential hidden motives. When the giver has followed the release ritual, they have given without strings. Honor their act by accepting it in the spirit it was intended, as a kindness. This allows the gift to complete its cycle and generate mutual warmth. 3. Pay it forward, not back. The only true way to repay a gift that cannot be monetized is not to pay the giver back, but to pay the generosity forward. Use the resource to get back on your feet, and then turn your stability into an opportunity to help someone else who needs support. This transforms the gift from a personal obligation into a positive force in the world, completing the cycle of selfless balance. Generosity, when approached with clarity and boundaries, is a beautiful and vital part of financial life. It turns money from a source of conflict into a vehicle for love, support, and connection. By ensuring that your giving is unconditional and your receiving is guilt-free, you uphold the highest form of relational harmony. Mutual support without silent sacrifice. Reflective close. Think about a time you gave or received money and it led to tension. Was that tension caused by an unspoken expectation or a lack of boundary? Make a commitment today to practice the release ritual on your next act of giving, ensuring the gift is fully unconditional, and that the only return you expect is the joy of the giving itself. Chapter 11. Protecting Peace in Tough Conversations. We've covered the ideal scenarios: how to set the stage, how to listen, how to speak, and how to agree. But even the most mindful, well-structured discussions can encounter stress. There will be moments when the stakes feel high, an unexpected fact is revealed, or old emotional triggers suddenly flare up. In these moments, your finely tuned communication skills will be tested. This is where emotional balance becomes your greatest strength. Protecting peace during tough conversations is not about avoiding the stress. It's about having a ready arsenal of strategies to stay calm, centered, and relentlessly solution-focused when the emotional scales begin to tip violently. The goal is to prevent the temporary intensity of the conversation from causing permanent damage to the relationship or derailing the agreed-upon plan. The immediate response. The pause and the reset. When a conversation turns tough, when you feel the heat rising in your chest or hear your voice sharpening, your very first action must be to interrupt the emotional circuit. Your natural fight-or-flight response is the enemy of collaboration. You need an immediate two-step maneuver: the pause and the reset. 1. The pause. Buy time with intention. Do not speak the angry or defensive thought that first comes to mind. Instead, physically pause the interaction. This is not walking out. It is an act of respectful emotional regulation. Use a neutral, pre-agreed phrase that signals a brief, necessary halt. You can say, "I need a moment to absorb that information. That's a big piece of news. Let's take 2 minutes to ensure we process it clearly. My emotions are rising. I need to pause, but I promise I'm committed to solving this." This simple act buys you the critical 60 seconds you need to regain control. It honors the conversation by acknowledging its importance, while protecting it from the immediate threat of impulsive, regrettable words. 2. The reset. Physical and mental centering. During that 60-second pause, you must physically and mentally reset your equilibrium. Physical reset. Take 3 deep, slow breaths. Focus on the sensation of air filling and leaving your lungs. This simple biological action signals to your nervous system that you are safe, allowing your prefrontal cortex, the rational part of your brain, to regain control from the emotional core. You can also discreetly press your feet flat onto the floor to feel grounded, or gently squeeze your hands to release physical tension. Mental reset. Quickly review your goal for the conversation. Remind yourself, "My goal is not to be right. My goal is for us to feel secure and aligned." By focusing on this higher, shared purpose, you immediately depersonalize the conflict. You shift your mind from attacked individual to committed partner. Returning to the table-centered allows you to approach the problem from a place of reason, not reaction, decoupling the person from the problem. In tough financial talks, it's incredibly easy to merge the person with the problem. When a partner reveals they made a risky investment without consulting you, it feels like a personal betrayal of trust. To protect the peace, you must consciously decouple the individual from the financial error. When the difficult fact is presented, mentally rephrase the situation. Instead of, "You are reckless and disrespectful for making that investment," think, "An action was taken, the investment that violated our agreement, the joint decision rule." The problem is the violation of the rule, not the character of the person I love. This distinction is vital for maintaining balance. You can aggressively address the problem, the breach of trust, the loss of capital, the lack of communication, while still holding the person in a space of love and respect. This allows you to say, "I am very upset about the fact that this investment was made alone, and we need to immediately address the risk it created," instead of saying, "I can't believe you did this to us." This decoupling allows you to be firm on the facts and soft on the person. This is the essence of effective, diplomatic collaboration under pressure, utilizing the neutral question strategy. When you are feeling attacked or confused by the other person's strong position, your natural tendency is to defend your own. Instead, employ the neutral question strategy to gently redirect the intensity toward collaborative problem solving. This technique uses structured questions to force clarity and uncover the deeper logic, preventing the conversation from remaining trapped in emotional deadlock. 1. The "what is needed" question. When the other person is spiraling into anxiety or complaint, ask, "Right now, what is the single most important thing you need from me to feel safer or more heard?" This question cuts through the noise. They might need silence, validation, a clear action plan, or simply time to vent. By asking them to name their immediate need, you redirect the energy from generalized distress to a specific, addressable request. 2. The if-then question. When they propose a solution you strongly disagree with, instead of attacking the idea, ask them to clarify the consequences. "If we proceed with that specific plan, what is the impact on our 3-year savings goal, and what are we mutually agreeing to sacrifice to achieve it?" This forces them to look beyond the immediate fix and evaluate their proposal against your shared, long-term balance. It's an exercise in joint reality testing, requiring both people to honestly weigh the trade-offs, not just the benefits. 3. The hypothetical reversal question. If a disagreement is stuck because neither of you can see the other's perspective, introduce a hypothetical scenario. Let's assume, just for a moment, that we decide to do it your way. What would be the biggest risk we would face, and how would you propose we protect ourselves from that risk? This gives them the temporary satisfaction of having their plan adopted, while simultaneously making them responsible for stress testing its potential weaknesses. It shifts their focus from advocating for their idea to ensuring the safety of the entire partnership. Knowing when to take a break and re-engage. Even with the best strategies, some conversations require a hard stop. If voices are raised, tears are flowing, or circular arguments begin, the relationship is now under threat, and the conversation is no longer productive. Use the pre-agreed rules of engagement we discussed in Chapter 7 to initiate a respectful timeout. The timeout protocol. 1. Acknowledge and initiate. State clearly, "We are both getting heated and I want to protect our peace. I am calling a timeout." 2. State commitment. "I need 30 minutes to calm down and regain my center, but I am absolutely committed to solving this. Let's meet back here at 8 o'clock tonight." 3. Physical separation. Agree to physically separate. The goal is complete distance from the issue and from each other, allowing the nervous system to truly settle. 4. Re-engage with intention. When you return, the discussion must begin with a calm acknowledgement of the pause. "Thank you for respecting the timeout. I'm feeling centered now and ready to focus on a solution. Where should we restart?" The ability to pause and re-engage is a sign of profound strength and mutual respect. It signals that you value the relationship's long-term health over the temporary satisfaction of winning an argument. Protecting peace in tough financial conversations is the highest application of emotional balance. It requires practice, discipline, and a deep commitment to the principle that your shared harmony is always more valuable than any dollar amount being debated. By staying centered and solution-focused, you ensure that financial challenges become opportunities for deeper connection, not division. Reflective close. Identify one financial issue that consistently triggers an emotional reaction in you. What is your go-to defense mechanism? Now, choose one strategy from this chapter, either the pause and reset or the neutral question strategy, and commit to using it the next time the topic comes up. Your choice to remain centered is the most powerful guarantee of lasting peace. Chapter 12. Living in Financial Harmony. We have reached the end of this journey. We began by acknowledging the heavy emotional weights we carry into money talks, and we are concluding with the light, sustainable feeling of genuine financial harmony. You now possess the tools not just to fix financial problems, but to prevent them from becoming relational problems in the first place. Living in financial harmony is not about achieving perfect wealth, nor is it about never having another disagreement. It is the conscious, continuous practice of maintaining equilibrium, a state where your financial decisions and your relational agreements are consistently balanced, fair, and respectful of everyone involved. Harmony is the beautiful, quiet feeling that comes when the scales are finally level, and you are no longer spending emotional energy defending your position or silently resenting another's. It's the feeling of shared peace, the integration of internal and external balance. Throughout these chapters, we have worked on two fundamental areas of balance, the internal and the external. True financial harmony is the integration of the two. Internal balance means achieving personal peace with your own financial reality. It is the ability to separate your self-worth from your net worth, to look at your budget with neutral curiosity rather than shame or fear. When you are internally balanced, you can approach any discussion from a place of secure self-respect. External balance means creating a system where resources, responsibilities, and emotional burdens are distributed fairly within your partnership or family. It is the consistent application of clarity, empathy, and diplomatic language to ensure all parties feel heard and valued in the shared financial plan. To live in harmony is to ensure these two systems are always speaking to one another. Your external agreements must honor your internal needs, and your internal clarity must be brought forth to improve your external systems. Money conversations, from threat to empowerment. The most significant shift you will experience is a transformation in how you view money conversations. Where they once felt like a threat, a doorway to conflict, judgment, or tension, they now become a source of empowerment. A conversation about money is no longer a moment to dread. It is now a ritual of connection. By adopting the principles of this book, you have reframed the dialogue in three profound ways. 1. The conversation as clarity. You now understand that clarity is the foundation of all lasting peace. You have committed to replacing the temporary quiet of avoidance with the sturdy, long-term security of honest discussion. You know how to bring facts to the table and to use neutral language that illuminates the path forward, rather than inflaming past mistakes. This constant pursuit of clarity ensures that financial drift and unspoken resentment cannot take root. 2. The conversation as respect. You practice non-defensive listening, treating the other person's fears, needs, and ideas with the dignity they deserve. By validating their perspective, even if you disagree with their conclusion, you demonstrate that your respect for them is greater than your need to be right. This active, generous listening creates a deep sense of psychological safety that strengthens the entire relationship. 3. The conversation as co-creation. You have moved past the restrictive thinking of compromise and embraced the abundance of collaboration. You see disagreements not as obstacles, but as puzzles that require the combined intelligence of both partners to solve. Your goal is always the "and" solution, a creative, fair path that honors the core values of both security and pleasure. Every difficult talk becomes an opportunity to weave your lives together more strongly. The daily practice of equilibrium. Harmony is not a destination. It is a discipline. It requires small, intentional actions every day to keep the financial scales level. 1. Embrace the financial huddle. Do not let the system run on autopilot for too long. Maintain your scheduled, low-stress financial huddle, perhaps 5 to 15 minutes once a week. This regular check-in is the most powerful tool against imbalance. It allows you to make tiny, almost imperceptible adjustments that prevent the need for massive, stressful course corrections later on. It's preventative maintenance for your relationship. 2. Honor the buffer zones. Continually honor your agreed-upon buffer zones, the personal discretionary funds and the shared joy fund. These funds are not leftovers. They are strategic allocations for autonomy and connection. By prioritizing funds for non-judgmental spending and shared experiences, you reduce the pressure on the shared budget and ensure that both individual needs and relational joy are intentionally supported. This maintains the essential balance between the individual and the partnership. 3. Review the why. When a discussion feels tense or an agreed-upon sacrifice feels heavy, always return to the written why. Look at your financial blueprint and remind yourselves, we are making this sacrifice for the value of early retirement, so we can travel together sooner. Or, we are saying no to this expense because we value the security of knowing we can handle an emergency without stress. Connecting the difficult what to the meaningful, why restores perspective and ensures that your actions align with your highest values, making the challenge feel purposeful, not punitive. The new way of being. When you truly live in financial harmony, you cease to see money as a heavy, separate entity that exists only to cause stress. Instead, you see it as a reflection of your shared values and a fluid medium through which you express love, respect, and commitment to one another. Your approach to life changes. You become a person who approaches difficult truths with poise, knowing that you have the skills to handle the conversation without fracturing the connection. You become a partner who values fairness not just in dollar amounts, but in the equitable distribution of effort, worry, and trust. This entire framework is about giving you the dignity and the self-possession to stand firmly in your financial truth, while always extending the grace and collaboration necessary to maintain peace with the people you love. You are not just managing money. You are architecting a life of integrated, peaceful well-being. The old fears, the fear of judgment, the fear of conflict, the fear of rejection, have been named, understood, and diffused. You no longer need to carry the heavy weight of silence or avoidance. You are equipped to face the financial world with clarity and diplomatic strength. Embrace this new way of living. Let your financial conversations flow with the same ease and openness as any other part of your life. Step forward with the confidence of someone who knows that their relationships and their bank account can, and should, remain strong and beautifully aligned. The journey to peaceful money is now fully underway. Reflective close. Acknowledge the transformation you have made by reading this book. Your greatest takeaway should be this: the most valuable asset in your financial life is the peace and stability of your primary relationships. Commit today to upholding this priority. Take the final step toward harmony by affirming that your approach to money will forever be guided by poise, partnership, and the unwavering pursuit of balance.